How's it going? Hope you've had a superb sporting week. Yep, it's that time of the week again. Thanks for joining us. This is Talking Point. Welcome to it. My name's Trevor Cramer. It's our final instalment of our weekly buffet of sports talk, and it's rugby and cricket on the menu this week. Joining me in the Talking Point studio this week, regular on our Talking Point podcast, the leader of our pack. He's back, the head of Citizen Sport. Welcome back, Jacques van der Westhuizen.
Yeah, how's it, Trevor? Thanks.
And he'll be joining us a bit later on the Talking Point hotline. It's senior Citizen Sports writer Wesley Botten as well. He'll be wearing his cricket hat this week a little bit later in the show. Cracking on, rugby-wise, the United Rugby Championship takes a break for the next 2 weeks or so, and the cross-continental season heads into another phase or another dimension, call it what you want, with the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup. South African franchises gearing up to test themselves against the powerhouses of the European game. Jacques, before we look at what lies ahead, let's do a quick summary of how our teams have fared in the URC so far after 7 weeks of action. The Bulls within 4 points of the leaders Leinster, but the balance of our team still languishing in the bottom half of the URC table. But firstly, Jacques, unpack that massacre at Loftus for us very quickly. The Bulls mauling the Sharks 44-10. What's happening down there in Durban? Just not happening for them. A big spending franchise, it has to be said. And it would appear they have the talent. They have the returning box. What do you sense is going on down there in Durban at the moment?
It's a difficult one. We're not there. We don't know what's going on in the camp, what training is like and that. But, obviously the big change in the off-season is John Plumtree returning. And obviously with the change in coaching, there'll be a change in philosophy. There'll be a different way of doing things. And unfortunately, a number of the key players were missing in the pre-season and were missing in those first few games because those guys were all at the World Cup. So, for those guys to come in now and all of a sudden, expect to change things is asking quite a lot. But we would have thought that the Sharks would have been better. As you say, they've spent a lot of money in the last year or two. They've got a great, a backer and an investor in them. And they're a team with quality players. And the fact that they're languishing down in 15th position out of 16 teams, having won one match, is hugely disappointing. And like you say, they got a hiding at Loftus. The Bulls really look like a team that's closely knit together. Jake White is getting the best out of all of those guys. There's great competition for places. And I think maybe that's the trick, is that, there's so many guys here that are fighting for their positions and that. I mean, a guy like Cornel Hendricks, who was such a star a year ago and so on, isn't even getting a looker now because there's so much competition. So, it's unfortunate. I hope the Sharks can turn it around because they're a quality team. They've got great support. And we need our teams to do well in all competitions. So let's see, maybe a change in, name of competition will do the trick for them.
You've spoken about it. The Bulls looking really good, as we've said. We'll touch on that a little bit later when we chat about the Champions Cup. One senses something big may be brewing at Loftus, but that's just my feeling at the moment. The Lions finally picking up some points on home turf, but the Stormers, although they beat Zebre convincingly last week, they still got a long way to go to claw their way back into contention.
Yeah, I think importantly, they have struggled a bit. They have had a tough away tour in that, but they have won 3 out of 7 matches. So they sort of, they're there and thereabouts. They've got a number of games coming up at home now, or at least in South Africa. And we know what their strength is in that, and they've been there and done it before. And with their World Cup box coming back into the squad, they'll take a game or two, as we saw last week, just to settle in again. And once they find their groove and their rhythm, I think the Stormers will become the team that we've become accustomed to over the last number of years. So I'm not too worried about them. Like I say, they've won 3 out of 7. They're 10th now, 2-3 wins in that in the new year, and they can easily be up to 4th or 5th in the log. So I think it's just a matter of time before they find their rhythm.
Lions looking reasonable?
Yeah, they're back at home in that, and they just look a completely transformed team when they play up on the half-veld. They really struggle on the road. They struggle in the conditions that they're not familiar with and used to. But when they play at Ellis Park, they really look like a team that can beat anybody on the day. They love throwing the ball around. They use the full width of the field. And they've looked, a completely different team over the last 2 weeks. So important for them that they've been able to pick up those wins at home. They do break now for the Challenge Cup, which will probably upset them a little bit because they have found some sort of rhythm. But hopefully they can continue playing good rugby and build on that which they have found. The secret that they found at home.
Okay, the URC, it's on hold for the next 2 weeks into the Champions and Challenge Cup competitions, mixing it with Europe's big boys, as someone said during the week. The Bulls and Stormers are contesting the Champions Cup, the Lion Sharks and Cheetahs, ridiculously, I have to say, still by invitation in that one. That still confuddles me. The poor orphans of South African rugby involved in the second-tier Challenge Cup, aside from the Cheetahs, Jacques. It's a fight on two fronts now. Depth, rotation, it'll be vital. It's tough. It's broad-based, yes, but briefly, how do you see the South African sides faring?
Yeah, like you say, I mean, the trick now is to see how that depth is in your squad. I mean, there's no ways you can play week in and week out with the same players. I was so surprised this week when the Lions named their team to go overseas. Every single one of those players in the starting team from last weekend in the URC won't be in action this weekend at all. There are names there that I've never seen, I've never heard of. A lot of juniors, a lot of fringe players, and the Lions have said straight, that they have to prioritise certain matches now, and they've done that with next week's visit by the Newcastle Falcons to Ellis Park. Their best team will play then because they'll see that as a game that they can and should win. They'll take their chances with a weakened team away from home this weekend. So, all the teams are going to do things, I think, a bit differently, but they're going to definitely have to rotate their squads throughout the season. It's week in, week out rugby. Here and there, you're going to have a weekend off. But, these big Euro Cup weekends are really big and massive. And, the South African teams and especially the Bulls and the Stormers have done well in the URC. But it's also now time after, 2 seasons that they start showing what they can do in the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup.
The French top 14 clubs and the English Premiership clubs, they join the fray now. As far as the Champions Cup goes, that is, and the Challenge Cup, your European contenders, Jacques, La Rochelle are the defending champions. They're in the Stormers pool along with Stade Francais, Sale, Leicester and Leinster. And the Bulls, they've got Bristol, Connacht, Lyon, Saracens and Bordeaux to contend with.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I've looked at those pools and that. They're all tough in that. There's not an easy match, especially with the travel factor with the South African teams now. They're going to be, have a lot of demands on them. I think the Bulls have got a fairly good chance of actually doing something because they've found some rhythm and confidence. And I think this weekend's match against Saracens is potentially their biggest match. And if they can win this one at home, it'll really set them up quite nicely. The Stormers, they face a tricky one. They're a team that's sort of there and thereabouts at the moment, still trying to find their groove, as I said. And, some of those big European teams, maybe not in the pool stage now, but as you get to the knockouts, when you think of teams like Leinster, La Rochelle, Toulon, Toulouse, Stade Francais, and even Sia Kolisi's Racing 92, those are well-established, successful European Cup-winning teams that have done it before and know how to handle big European club rugby. So still a very much a learning curve, I think, for the South Africans when it comes to playing in a competition like the URC 1 week and then switching over to Champions League style, rugby the following week. So, big ask for the South Africans, but our Bulls are looking good. The Stormers have been there, and let's see what happens. One never knows, but it's going to be a big competition for those teams.
Before we wrap it very quickly, pundits call. An exciting opening weekend already in the Champions Cup. The Bulls host Saracens. The Stormers are away to a Leicester side featuring Jasper Wiese and Andre Pollard. Really mouth-watering stuff already. Then in the Challenge Cup, the Cheetahs, they'll be based abroad. They visit Zebre. The Sharks host Pau and the Lions are at Perpignan. Which games should we get really excited about this weekend, Jacques?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the two big Champions Cup games, Bulls against Saracens on Saturday, is going to be a massive one. If you just think about the players and the individuals there, Saracens have got guys like Owen Farrell, Mauro Toggi. Those guys are coming back from a World Cup where they were beaten by the Box. So they'll want to prove something, and the Bulls are flying high at the moment. So that's going to be a great game, I think. I'm still going with the Bulls at home. I think they should win that game. Stormers away to Leicester. That's, like you said, we've got a potential matchup between Mani Libok and Andre Pollard at fly half. We've got Evan Roos against Jasper Wiese at number 8. What a match to look forward to. I don't know if the Stormers will have enough. Leicester at home, a really strong quality team. So big match there. And then obviously, like you say, Challenge Cup. I'm pleased to see the Cheetahs are back in action. I don't know how rusty they're going to be. I know they played a couple of friendlies against the Western Force pre-season, but that's a couple of weeks ago now. It meant nothing. What is their non-activity, how is that going to affect them? So big ask to go to Zebra and play there. Sharks, I think, should be too strong for Power, but you never know. But hopefully the Sharks can put on a good performance there and get some sort of confidence back. And then the Lions are in France and Perpignan. Again, a young team, untried, untested, haven't played much together. I can't see the Lions winning that one at all.
No time for a break. Some really great rugby to look forward to over these December holidays. Still unaccustomed as I am to talking rugby in the high summer months here in South Africa. But still time for cricket now to churn the emotions again. Joining us on the Talking Point hotline, welcome to senior citizen sports writer Wesley Botton. Nice to have you on board again, as always, Wes. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Trev. Always good, mate.
India on our shores for a tour encompassing 3 T20 internationals against the Proteas, 3 one-day internationals and 2 test matches over the festive period. Now, Wes, the national selectors have really mixed and matched for the respective series coming up. A good deal of fresh faces, but the team's perhaps more characterised by who's been left out rather than who's been included, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. They've made some sort of strange decisions, and obviously they've got their reasons for it. But there are some big players who might have been expected to be included. Maybe a little bit of a surprise that Heinrich Claessen's not in the test side, and then a couple of younger guys. But they have defended themselves. They've explained why they've made the decisions that they've made. There's quite a few new faces in the squad. I do feel like they should probably be experimenting on a different tour. The India one's a big one. But yeah, I suppose at least we get a chance to see some new guys playing for South Africa, which we haven't seen before.
3 uncapped players, the all-rounder Mpongwana, batter David Bedingham and fast bowler Nandre Burger awarded call-ups. Mpongwana named in the ODI squad after a successful CSA one-day cup campaign. Bedingham named in the test squad and Burger in all 3 squads. Maybe we haven't been watching enough domestic cricket, Wes. That's definitely the case. Is this a positive step against a team like you were just alluding to of India's calibre, who incidentally have gone down a similar selection road as well?
Yeah, so India are without some of their senior players as well, at least for the limited overs portion of the tour, which kind of balances it out. It's almost a baptism of fire for these guys that are being introduced to the side because, again, a series against India is massive and there's a lot of pressure. So it's a big one to be called up to, but obviously a massive opportunity. I think especially for the guys who are going to be playing in the T20 series for the first time, they might have an opportunity to kind of put their hands up in terms of selection for the World Cup next year. Big opportunity as well for Nandre Burger. They've spoken a lot about him this week. Anrich Nokia, unfortunately, still injured. And then there's a couple of guys who are being rested for the limited overs portion of the tour. So for Burger, it's a big one. We are still looking for fast bowlers. I think at the World Cup, we kind of got an indication of how much trouble it can cause when we don't have the depth in that department. So maybe they're trying to fix that. And then obviously, like you said, a chance for Bedingham in the test side. Mpongwana gets an opportunity as well. There's also Othniel Bartman, who's been selected before but hasn't played. And then Tristan Stubbs also getting a call-up. There's been questions about why Stubbs hasn't had an opportunity in the test side, so he gets that chance now.
I'm a purist. I love my test cricket. Listening to the Proteas coaching staff last week, one couldn't help picking up how much emphasis has been placed on the red ball leg of this tour, how important the two-match test series actually is. It's the start of the next cycle of the World Test Championship, and the Proteas would want nothing less than getting off on the front foot. So too India. Top players, as we alluded to earlier, being left out of the white ball teams, shipped off to play domestic first-class cricket. What do you make of that, Wes?
Honestly, I don't feel it's necessary. I feel that these guys are so experienced that they've been playing in the various formats at domestic level for so long. I don't feel it was necessary to leave some of the senior guys out of the limited overs portion of the tour in order for them just to get one first-class game under their belts. I know it's a long time since they played that format of cricket, but they should have the experience to be able to just sort of pitch up, and switch sort of mindset from the limited overs formats into the longer formats. So it's great that they have got full strength sides. Fortunately, we're not going to see that in the limited overs portion of the tour, but obviously Test cricket is still massive. Like you say, for anybody who's a purist, it is the most important part of the tour, and it is the beginning of the ICC Test Championship. So, great that we're going to see world-class cricket, I'm sure, in those first two tests, even though we might not see the quality of cricket that we were hoping for in the T20s and the one-day games.
Full steam ahead. The first T20 International in Durban this Sunday at Kingsmead. Geberia and Joburg host the next two. The ODIs are in Joburg, Geberia and Paarl. And the tests, they're in Centurion and Cape Town. Wes, thanks for your input. Before you leave, time for our weekly Flop and Gold Star feature, where we acknowledge excellence and, of course, hammer mediocrity. My Gold Star of the week goes to, and I'm moving into the golfing space once again. Back-to-back awards. My Gold Star this week goes to golfer Dean Burmester. Winner of the SA Open golf title at Blair Athol last weekend, adding to his triumph at the Joburg Open the week before. In the region of 13 million rand, I think we were chatting about it the other day, in his pocket for just 2 weeks' work. Not bad. Well done, Dean Burmester. My flop of the week, Manchester City Golden Boy, Erling Haaland.
You suck!
He stormed off the pitch after a furious remonstration with the match referee Simon Hooper after an on-field decision in the 3-3 draw with Tottenham Hotspur last weekend. He threw his tantrum like a little child and quite frankly embarrassed himself as well as his club. He also took to X, formerly Twitter, with the letters WTF and a video clip of the incident in question. Jacques, how are you looking this week?
I agree with you, Trevor. Dean Burmester was fantastic going back-to-back, but my gold star this week goes to the Blitzboks. They had a fantastic tournament in Dubai, winning that tournament for the 5th time in a row. They've been phenomenal over the weekend after a really, really difficult previous season where they struggled. They battled to win. They really suffered some huge defeats. And for them to come back and win the first tournament of the new series is fantastic. And they're back in Cape Town this weekend, and hopefully, they can do something there. They haven't generally performed well at their home tournament, but hopefully, after last weekend's win in Dubai, they can do something really special. And then my flop goes to the Sharks. They just keep, falling further and further down the hole. They really were expected to put up a good performance with their box back at Loftus, and they failed to do that, and they were well beaten. And they're my flop of the week.
Wes, how are you looking?
To Gerda Steyn, the marathon runner, she broke the South African marathon record in Valencia last week. It's not often that you see an athlete who's able to show such versatility in long-distance running. There's a massive difference between a 42-kilometer race and ultra-distance races like we have in Africa. And for Gerda Steyn, as well as she does in both, I think is brilliant. And I think it's also an indication that she's going to have hopefully a very good run at the Olympic Games next year. And then my flop of the week, got to go to the national netball side. They're playing 3 tests against England. They lost the first one. They will tell you that they came close, which they did. They put up a fight, but with government now investing in professional football and trying to raise the status of the game, I think this latest loss, we lose just about every time we play against higher-ranked teams. And again, this defeat, I think, offers us an indication of why it's so important for us to turn professional.
And that's where we'll wrap it. Have yourself a great sporting week with the Citizen as your companion, both online and in print. Jacques van der Westhuizen, Head of Citizen Sport, thanks again for joining us, sharing your views. Great to chat again. And a big thanks to Senior Citizen sports writer Wesley Botten for your input. Have an amazing festive season, guys. My name's Trevor Cramer. This has been Talking Point. You'll find us on the citizen.co.za or citizen.co.za. Click on the multimedia subsection podcasts. Why not follow Citizen News on Iono FM? You'll find the audio version there, and you'll also find the Talking Point video podcast on the Citizen's YouTube account. Go check it out and subscribe. That's a wrap for 2023. Have yourself an awesome festive season. Please keep safe. Hope to have you all back next year. Till next year, from us, cheers.